So it is 11:11 p.m. on a Monday night, and generally I would never be filming a video, especially outside like this, at this time, because I like to get my stuff done earlier in the day so I can relax by this point in time. But sometimes things don't go according to plan. Earlier I filmed my 3 videos and the audio didn't record for 2 of them. And I could have sat around feeling sorry for myself, moping, and for a while I did. And then I realized that I have another opportunity to turn this camera on and provide some insight to you as the viewer. And so I'm outside making this video because I'm a persistent person. I am a very persistent person. This is why you see me uploading so many videos. I'm persistent, I'm hungry, I'm ambitious even. And the reason why I'm like this is because I have a great deal of desire in my heart. I want change. I want to change my life. I want to change other people's lives. And I take both of those desires and I combine them to fuel my ambition and my persistence as an extension of that. But something that I've realized throughout the years, especially when I was creating self-improvement content, and as I've gone about the process of coaching people in addition to what I do with this channel talking about the travel stuff, is I've realized that if somebody is unwilling to change, then the likelihood is they will never be able to change. Before you are able to change, you must be willing to change. And I always thought about this at the micro level. If you want to change your life, you must be willing to be persistent. You must be willing to do what it takes to take the actions, create the habits that facilitate that change. But until I traveled overseas to Europe, I never really took the time to consider the macro version of this principle, which is that if a nation, if a society is unwilling to change, then they will also be unable, or they might as well be unable. And what I've come to realize is that America is the way that it is because many of its people are unwilling to change. Its society is by and large unwilling to change. And in this video, I want to talk about some of the ways in which America is unwilling to change, and consequently why it is behind a lot of European countries in most quality of life surveys or ranking lists. The first thing being transportation. So I've talked about this in a few of my recent videos, but it's so important that it's pretty much worth doubling down on. We're actually going to walk this way, go toward this main road, because there aren't many cars out and about today, well, tonight. But transportation, I'm a firm believer that even if you suddenly implemented a bus route, an extensive bus route, and you made the train that we have a lot more extensive as well, and added in bike lanes, I truly believe that not much would change. People here would still opt to use their cars. Why is that? Why do I believe that? Americans have this mentality that cycling or walking or even taking public transit makes you a B-rate citizen, someone who is of a lower class, therefore has less worth as a person. Maybe that's a bit of an exaggeration, but the essence is most certainly true. And that's why, again, I don't think that just putting bike lanes on a road is really going to change much, or installing more bus stops or creating a more extensive bus route is really going to change much of anything. It's because it's not about the infrastructure, it's about the people. Now, on that note, another area where Americans are just extremely stubborn for no reason and unwilling to change is the healthcare system. Now, I'm not going to sit here and act like I'm an expert on healthcare. I'm not. Okay, I'm just a college dropout, just figuring this life thing out like everyone else. But what I do know, just intrinsically, is that there are European countries who have figured it out. Therefore, there is no excuse for America, the richest nation on the planet, the wealthiest nation on the planet, to not have it figured out as well. I just don't understand it. There are situations where somebody gets injured, maybe in a car accident or whatever. Maybe if there was a bus line, it wouldn't have happened, but I digress. They get in a car accident and the ambulance charges them a couple $1,000s for the ride to the hospital. And at the hospital, they might charge them another few $100s with insurance, just to tell them that they're all good to go. Now, look, from what I understand, the vast majority of bankruptcies in the US occur because of medical costs. The cost of just being healthy here is exorbitant. It's predatory and it's unnecessary, because again, I'd understand if there were no other reference points to show that there's another way to do it, but there are. All right, I went to Europe, I went to the Netherlands without knowing how the healthcare system over there works. I went over there, I signed up for health insurance. Now, to be fair, I will say there were some hiccups in that process. I won't really go too deep into that because I'm still trying to figure out what the deal is with that, but I had to get some sort of investigation done with some of the government bureaucracy, whatever. I don't know. Again, I don't really know how the whole process works, but what I do know is that the policy that I signed up for was $122.95, 122 euros and 95 cents, which is pretty much the same thing per month. In the US, especially as an entrepreneur like myself, who makes money talking to a camera or in some other unconventional way, you would be very hard pressed to find a health insurance policy that is that cheap. And I think, if I recall correctly, I got that policy because I chose the highest deductible, which was probably 800 euros, something like that. So basically, if something went wrong, I would be liable for 800 euros. And then after that, the insurance would kick in. Here in the US, look, I've never signed up for health insurance myself because I'm 25, and here, up until the age of 26, you can stay on your parents' policy. But until I went to the Netherlands, I was on my parents' policy, so I don't know how much it would cost if I decided to get my own policy as an entrepreneur. But I know it wouldn't be $122.95 with an $800 deductible. I can almost guarantee you that. It'd probably be closer to double that. Probably closer to maybe 250, 300 a month, and then a deductible of maybe 1,500 to 2,000. And I'm just kind of spitballing numbers right now, but the point is, it would be much higher. And the reason why it's this way is because people keep voting for it. People, for whatever reason, are averse to accessible healthcare, and I can't understand why. I don't understand why this is the case, what the logic behind this is. I mean, really, there is no logic behind this. These have to be people who aren't thinking rationally. They're not thinking in terms of what benefits the group. They're thinking in terms of what benefits them, without understanding that what benefits the group does benefit them. Because maybe in you paying more money in your taxes for everyone to have access to healthcare, you're funding the health of somebody who will end up solving the transportation problem. So I don't know. This is just the way that I think. This is the way that I think. I tend to be very optimistic about the possibilities that people present. So I see people as intrinsically valuable. And I think that any investment in people, be it in their health or their education, is pretty much a no-brainer. That's just my personal opinion, though. Maybe I sound like I'm very left-leaning or whatever, but I don't think this is a matter of politics or being liberal or conservative. I think this is a matter of common sense, personally. But I don't know, maybe I'm just a contrarian, or maybe I'm onto something. Now, the next thing that Americans are overly stubborn about changing about this country is the cost of college. The cost of college. This always blows my mind when I think about it. Now, just for some context, I'm a college dropout. I went to college for about a semester and a half. I was an A and B student, and for me, getting B's was bad. I was a straight A student through high school, top 7% of my class. They don't track metrics like this in Europe, at least as far as I'm aware. But I'm saying this to say that I was a good student. But I was smart enough to see that college wasn't a very good deal, at least for someone like me, because I knew I wanted to be an entrepreneur. I knew I didn't want to work a traditional job that would confine me to a location. So I said, okay, I'm gonna drop out and start my own thing, and that's what I did. But truthfully, if I'm gonna be completely honest with you, I've never really told anybody this. If college was free or much cheaper than it would have been if I had stayed in college, I probably wouldn't have dropped out. Truthfully, if I'm being completely honest, because you have to think about it. The opportunity that college provides you is undeniable. It's an undeniable fact that when you get a college degree, the world opens up in a whole new way for you. But if you're bogged down with $100,000 in student loan debt, the world closes, and it closes very, very rapidly. And that $100,000 is not a random number. That's what I would have owed if I had went to my dream school. So again, I was a straight A student. I got top 7% in my class. And the reason why I worked so hard in high school was so that I can get into my dream school, the University of Texas at Austin. And I did that. But then I did the math and I said, okay, they're charging $12,000 a year for tuition, and that's in-state tuition. Out-of-state tuition, you're talking probably $25,000, maybe $20,000 if you're lucky. I don't know. $12,000 a year for tuition, another $13,000 a year for room and board. And at some colleges, you actually have to stay on campus as a freshman. That wasn't the case at UT Austin, but my family doesn't live in Austin. We live a few hours away, so I would have had to have stayed on campus. $100,000. If I had went to UT Austin in 2018 and graduated in 2022, I would have been a 22-year-old with $100,000 in debt. $100,000 in debt. I would be making these videos from the worst possible headspace that I could ever be in. Because how can you concentrate on video ideas when you have this debt looming in the back of your head? I just don't get it. I don't know how people do it, honestly. I mean, I do get it because, again, I won't deny that college provides you with a plethora of opportunities that you won't otherwise have. But I don't think, personally, that these opportunities should come at such a great cost. Because in Europe, from what I've seen, in some countries, college is free. In other countries, like the Netherlands, college is much cheaper. Much, much cheaper. I think my girlfriend graduated with, I don't know how much in debt, but I'm pretty sure she has cleared that debt up already, and she graduated just last year, 2024. And that was without having a steady source of income from a job or anything like that. She was able to clear that debt out quick. Very, very quick. Because, well, Europe is sensible and they subsidize education for the people who live there. Because why wouldn't they? Those are the people who are not just living in, but also responsible for the country. Those are the people who are building the future of the Netherlands, of Denmark, of Germany, of Sweden, of Switzerland, Poland, wherever else. So they invest into their future. It's common sense, but for whatever reason, Americans just don't see this. Some do, some do. Some understand that all of these things need drastic and rapid change, but many don't. Many of them don't. And some of these people even have children, and they encourage their children to pull out these student loans to get degrees that they won't even use. I just don't get it. I truly don't understand it. Again, I'm not anti-college, but that student loan thing, that's a scam. That's a scam if I've ever seen one before. People will be very quick to talk about how a $1,000 online course is a scam, and yet they'll go and pay $100,000 for a degree in art history. I don't know. And that's another thing. If you are interested in something like art history or some subject that doesn't necessarily qualify you for a very high-end job, you shouldn't be penalized for that, because I think that as a society, we should be encouraging young people to pursue their passions, or at the very least, pursue their proficiencies. But the person who's proficient at engineering has a big advantage over the person who's proficient at painting. And I mean, the market is the market, but I don't know. I just think that the US needs to solve that problem, because you don't want somebody who never wanted to be a doctor in the first place trying to figure out what's wrong with your body. At least me personally, I don't know. Especially if I'm going to be paying these exorbitant fees for health insurance.